Well, I'm here with my friend Destiny, whom I met a few months ago, and I thought it might be nice for me to incorporate into my presentation a couple of interviews. Now, admittedly, it is Wednesday night, and this presentation will occur tomorrow morning. I'm famous for my procrastination, but I texted Destiny. She was willing to come down to the church, and I'm so grateful for that. And so Destiny contacted me a while back, and so the first question I want to ask her is how you found Blessings Christian Church.
So I was already looking for a church, kind of just with my journey through faith and everything. And I really wanted to find one that was, like biblically sound, preferably like reformed, if that's, what some churches go by. And I was just looking out on Google and I was going through a lot of reviews. And the good thing about COVID, the one good thing is that a lot of people's, what's it called? Sermons, yeah, are online, so I could actually kind of like test it out before I went in there to go visit people and stuff. So I was able to like watch a couple of your sermons, and I really liked the way that you guys were teaching, and referring back to scripture. And then that's when I contacted you to actually come in and visit the church in person.
Okay, and why were you at this point where you were looking for another church? I mean, presumably you grew up in a Christian home or at least received some Christian instruction, but it sounds like you were maybe doing some study on your own. What was that like? How long did that take? And what ultimately gave you this conviction that you should pursue a church rather than just be a follower of Jesus out there in the world?
I did have influence as a child growing up. Like my family was all Christian. We were kind of in and out of the church though, so it wasn't like a consistent influence. So even though like I was told that I believed in God and that's what we believed in, I didn't really have a personal relationship with Him until I was about like I want to say 18, 19. I started like I came across a sermon from a friend, actually, from somebody else, a church online in the States. And I started watching that, and it really convicted me to read my Bible. So over the course of like I want to say maybe 2 years, on and off, I was just reading the Bible from beginning to the end. And it wasn't until I got through the whole entire thing where I realized that like just like watching sermons online and reading the Bible isn't enough. Having that community, and being able to have people to fall on when you're, maybe falling into sin or have questions and don't really understand where to go, like having that influence in person, would make it easier for me to continue my walk with Christ.
Yeah, that's wonderful to hear. I think you're right. So you are on this journey. At this stage, what do you understand by the call of Jesus to follow him? What does following Jesus mean for you at this stage?
It's a really good question. I think it could mean a couple of things, but for me personally, number one, what it means is learning to not rely on yourself and your own understanding, because with the way that we were born into sin. We don't really know right from wrong as well, and it's a lot easier to follow the wrong than it is to follow the right. So definitely, learning to rely on the word and what scripture says and believing that to be true, and also like learning to love people and yourself despite, feelings, like learning to follow and obey without following your feelings. I feel that's what it means to follow Christ, because ultimately He knows what's best for us, and the way to live life in the purest ways. So to not let your feelings get involved in certain areas, because it is easy to let that happen, and to just follow Christ, based on scripture, based on your own convictions, and not to get too emotional about it and fall away from that.
Yeah, I think that's really good. I'll ask a follow up question. I said I was only going to ask you three questions, but you're doing so great. Um, so you came to renewed convictions about the responsibilities of being a Christian from your own Bible reading. Um, how has your life changed since you came to those convictions, and what do you think is especially difficult about following Jesus today?
So one of the things that I've really learned, and honestly, I'll start with what was most difficult. I think, in my age group, especially, I'm like in my early 20s. There's just so much outside influence with social media and everything to kind of fall astray, and a lot of false teachers and stuff as well. So you might think something's biblical because they have this huge following or something like that, and then you realize it isn't. So learning to always go back to the Bible every single time. And honestly, ever since I've got come to those convictions, it's become, I want to say, a little bit easier to understand where people are coming from, and understanding that, like, if they don't have a relationship with Christ, like how they may act is influenced based on who they choose to believe in and who they follow, and not letting that get or hurt me as much as it used to. Now it's easier for me to like pray for them, or to refer to scripture, and to understand that, we are living in a world of sin, and we are trying to stay on this path and follow Jesus. So not letting outside influences or outside emotions or people who don't follow Christ like affect me as much, and just always looking to Jesus, or trying to find Jesus in everything that I do.
One last question, and then I promise I'll stop.
No worries.
So you came to Blessings Church to worship for the first time without ever really having been here before. I mean, we may have met, at Westtown or here at the church, but what was going through your mind when you first worshiped with us? Was that a pretty intimidating experience to walk through the doors and see these people and really be quite unsure what was going to happen? Maybe share a little bit about that experience.
So it was definitely intimidating, mainly because I was always in and out the church. So I was never in a church long enough to build a community. And with me, like, I have anxiety, so I always think worst case scenario. So walking in, I was like, oh my gosh, everybody's gonna stare at me, and like they're gonna be like, oh, like she's not a Christian, she doesn't follow. Like, I was thinking the absolute worst. Like, everybody's like not gonna talk to me. I'm gonna feel awkward. Like, I'm gonna feel like I don't belong. But honestly, walking in, and everybody was so welcoming, and it's like some people already knew my name, which was like awesome. And everybody was very welcoming, and it felt very comfortable to like kind of sit and like be present in person, because with COVID, it was so long before we could actually like sit inside and watch and attend an actual service. But yeah, definitely nerve-wracking and intimidating at first. But once I got in there and I like pushed past that initial fear and got to sit down, it was a lot better. A lot more welcoming than I had convinced myself it was going to be.
Yeah, I'm always so proud of people when they come to church for the first time, because it's such a daunting experience. And of course, in some ways, because of COVID and live stream, it's made it a little easier for some people because they have some idea what the church looks like on the inside and what's going to happen. Anyhow, I won't take up more of your time. Thank you so much, Destiny, on short notice, showing up here for this interview. God bless you.